Welcome to Monk's Moon Temple. Find yourself in a comfortable seat. Not the edge of your chair, the center of it. Both feet on the floor, or crossed beneath you if that's how you rest. Hands resting somewhere they don't need to work. Perhaps one palm cupped inside the other, like a small boat finding harbor. And if you're listening while moving, driving, walking, folding laundry, that's perfectly fine too. Monks have always taught while walking. The Buddha himself gave entire discourses while pacing back and forth under trees. Movement and stillness both have their wisdom. Take one breath. Just one. Not a special breath, not forced or shaped into something it isn't. Just the ordinary miracle of air entering, leaving. Notice how your body knows how to do this without any instruction manual. 25,000 breaths a day, and you never lose count. Your lungs remember. Your cells remember. Something in you has always known how to continue being. This is where we begin tonight, not with doctrines or beliefs, but with this simple fact: you are already participating in something ancient. Something that was happening before you were born and will continue after you leave. Something that passes through you like breath passes through a bellows, shaping everything, belonging to no one. Tonight we speak of karma and rebirth. Not as superstitions to adopt or reject. Not as philosophical puzzles to solve. But as descriptions of how you already live, every moment, whether you believe in them or not. Let me tell you about a woman named Dr. Elena Vasquez. Dr. Vasquez directs a memory research center in Chicago. She has spent 35 years studying how human beings encode, store, and retrieve experience. Her lab has published over 200 peer-reviewed papers. She has received every honor her profession can bestow. And she will tell you, without hesitation, that she cannot remember most of her life. In 1992, she told me once, I published a paper that changed my field. I remember the data. I remember the conclusions. I cannot remember a single thing I ate that entire year. I cannot remember what my apartment looked like, or the color of my car, or the names of the graduate students who worked 60-hour weeks beside me. That year is gone. But that year built me. The woman who wrote that paper is not someone I remember being, she's someone I became. Her work is still in my laboratory, her habits are still in my hands. She vanished, and she never leaves. This is the first truth of karma. Not punishment and reward. Not cosmic bookkeeping. Just this: intention sculpts the sculptor. The Buddha, sitting under the Bodhi tree 25 centuries ago, did not discover a supernatural law. He discovered what Dr. Vasquez discovered. That we are built, moment by moment, by what we choose to do. Not by what happens to us, that's weather. But by how we meet what happens to us, that's character. That's karma. Intention, I tell you, is karma. These are the Buddha's own words from the Anguttara Nikaya. Not action itself. Not outcome. Intention. This distinction changes everything. Consider two gardeners living on opposite sides of the same mountain. The first gardener wakes at dawn, walks her rows of tomatoes and peppers, checks for pests, waters the roots rather than the leaves, prunes judiciously. She does this because she loves the work. She does this because her grandmother taught her that soil wants to give life, and a gardener's job is simply to help. She does this without any thought of reward. The second gardener performs the identical actions, same plants, same watering schedule, same pruning technique. But his motivation is different. He gardens because he fears his neighbor will judge him if his vegetables are smaller. He gardens because he read an article claiming homegrown tomatoes prevent cancer. He gardens because he believes the universe will reward his industriousness with good fortune. A late summer storm comes. Both gardens are destroyed. Hail shreds the leaves. Wind snaps the stakes. The vegetables rot in waterlogged soil. Now, whose karma is darker? The Buddha would say, neither. Karma is not determined by outcomes. The storm was not karma, it was weather. The destruction was not karma, it was cause and effect. The only karma in this story occurred while the gardeners were gardening. The first gardener accumulated bright karma through her intention of love, connection, reverence. The second gardener accumulated mixed karma, some brightness in the action itself, some darkness in the fear and grasping that motivated it. When the storm came, their karma was already complete. It had already shaped them. The first gardener became slightly more capable of loving without conditions. The second gardener became slightly more convinced that the world will not give him what he needs. Both will wake tomorrow and garden again, one from abundance, one from lack. This is the Buddha's radical teaching: you are not punished for your karma. You are punished by your karma. You are also blessed by your karma, shaped by your karma, built entirely from your karma. And the raw material of this construction project is nothing other than your own intentions, expressed through body, speech, and mind. Before we go deeper into this architecture of intention, I want to pause and acknowledge something. You're still here. Perhaps you've been practicing Buddhism for years. Perhaps you just discovered this channel yesterday, drawn by curiosity or desperation or something you can't name. Perhaps you're skeptical of the entire enterprise, karma and rebirth sounding exactly like the superstitions you left behind when you outgrew your childhood religion. Perhaps you're exhausted, and you came here hoping someone would say something that makes the weight of being human feel slightly more bearable. Whatever brought you to Monk's Moon Temple tonight, you are welcome. And if this teaching is proving useful to you, if these ancient words are finding some echo in your modern life, please consider subscribing. Not as a transaction. Not because you owe me anything. But as a way of saying, this matters. This should continue. I want to be part of the conversation. We are all gardeners on opposite sides of the mountain. The work continues only as long as we help each other remember why we're working. The Buddha identified 3 channels through which intention becomes karma: body, speech, and mind. Notice the order. Not mind first, then speech, then body, as if thought were the real action and everything else just its shadow. The Buddha listed body and speech before mind. Why? Because you cannot see your own mind directly. You cannot hold an intention in your hands and examine it. Intention is invisible, instantaneous, gone before you've even registered its presence. But you can see your body. You can hear your speech. You can observe, with the patience of a naturalist watching birds, what your hands do and what your mouth says. And from these tracks, you can infer the animal that made them. This is practical Buddhism. This is not philosophy, this is self-knowledge through self-observation. I once knew a woman who worked on the 42nd floor of a Manhattan office tower. Every morning, she rode the elevator with a man from the floor below hers. He always wore charcoal suits. He always smelled of sandalwood cologne. He always held the elevator door open for anyone approaching, even when he was already late. She told me this detail as if it were trivial. He just held the door. Every single time. I asked her, did she ever see him angry? She thought for a long time. No, she said. I never did. But I don't know him. I just rode the elevator with him. I asked her, could she imagine him yelling at a subordinate? Could she imagine him cutting off a driver in traffic? Could she imagine him speaking cruelly to his children? No, she said immediately. I can't imagine him doing any of those things. She had never spoken to this man. She didn't know his name, his profession, his religion, his politics. But she had observed, over hundreds of mornings, the accumulated architecture of his karma. His intention to be kind had expressed itself through his hand, reaching out to stop a closing door. That expression had built, over time, a man who could not be imagined behaving otherwise. This is what the Buddha meant when he said we are our karma. Not that we carry a balance sheet of merits and demerits. Not that we are rewarded or punished by cosmic accountants. But that every intentional act is a seed that grows into the capacity for more such acts. The kind man becomes kinder through kindness. The cruel man becomes crueler through cruelty. Not because the universe is judging them, but because that's how seeds work. They produce more of themselves. Now we arrive at the problem. The contradiction that has vexed Buddhist practitioners for 25 centuries. The question every intelligent person asks when they first encounter these teachings. If there is no self, what gets reborn? The Buddha did not evade this question. He answered it directly, repeatedly, with the patience of a father teaching a child to tie his shoes. But the answer requires us to set aside everything we think we know about identity, continuity, and what it means to be you. Let me tell you about a river. Not a river you've visited. An imaginary river. A thought river. It flows from a glacier in your mind's mountains, through plains of imagination, to a sea you've never seen. This river has a name. Let's call it the River Anna. Now, the River Anna today is not the River Anna of last week. Some water has flowed out. New water has flowed in. The temperature has changed. The speed has changed. A storm upstream has added silt, a fisherman downstream has removed trout. Every molecule is different. Every characteristic has shifted. And yet, it is the River Anna. We name it as one thing. We speak of it as continuous. We say, the river carved this canyon over 10,000 years, as if the river that carved the canyon and the river we visit today are somehow the same entity, despite sharing not a single atom. The Buddha says, you are the River Anna. You are not a static entity moving through time. You are a pattern of energy propagating through causes and conditions. The child you were at 5 years old is not you. That child had different cells, different memories, different fears, different dreams. She has vanished as completely as the River Anna of last Tuesday. And yet something continues. Something flows. Something connects that vanished child to the person reading these words. That something is not a soul. It is not an eternal self. It is not a ghost in the machine. It is simply causality, the unbroken chain of cause and effect linking each moment of your existence to the next. When you wake tomorrow morning, you will not be the same person who fell asleep tonight. That person is gone. Sleep erased him. But his thoughts, his habits, his fears, his loves, they will continue into the morning person. Not because there is a continuous self, but because there is a continuous process. The flame that burned last night and the flame burning now are not the same flame. But without the first, the second could not exist. My grandmother's piano teacher was a woman named Hilda Chen. Hilda was born in Shanghai in 1908. She studied at the conservatory in Vienna. She fled Europe in 1938 with nothing but her music scores and a silver locket containing her mother's photograph. She settled in San Francisco and taught piano for 53 years. My grandmother studied with Hilda from ages 7 to 17. She would take the streetcar across town every Saturday morning, clutching her Czerny exercises and her anxiety. Hilda was not gentle. She would rap students' knuckles with a wooden pencil when they played wrong notes. She would say, "You are not trying. You are only hoping." She demanded that each piece be practiced until it could be played flawlessly 3 times in a row, in the dark, with your eyes closed. My grandmother is 82 now. Her hands are twisted with arthritis. She can no longer play the piano. But when she sets a cup of tea on the table, she places it exactly at the front of the coaster, aligned with the edge. When she writes a check, her signature is a precise, elegant calligraphy. The same signature Hilda demanded 10,000 times until it became automatic. When she speaks, her sentences are complete. Her clauses nest within clauses like Russian dolls. Her words are chosen for economy and grace. My grandmother has not seen Hilda Chen in 65 years. Hilda died in 1987. And yet Hilda speaks through my grandmother's handwriting. Hilda pours my grandmother's tea. Hilda constructs my grandmother's sentences. Where is Hilda Chen now? Not in a grave. Not in a heaven. Not in a rebirth realm visible only to enlightened beings. Hilda Chen is alive in every student she taught, every habit she instilled, every standard of excellence she refused to lower. She flows through my grandmother into my mother into me. My grandmother's signature is Hilda's signature, passed through 2 generations of hands and nerves and muscle memory. I write thank you notes with a fountain pen because my grandmother does, because Hilda did. This is rebirth without a self. This is karma without a soul. We continue not because we persist, but because our actions persist. The doer vanishes. The doing remains. Now we come to the teaching that makes modern Western Buddhists uncomfortable. The Buddha described 31 distinct planes of existence. Not metaphorically. Not as psychological states. He claimed these realms are actual dimensions where beings arise according to their karma. Hell realms of screaming torment. Hungry ghost realms of insatiable craving. Animal realms of predation and fear. Human realms of choice and consequence. Deva realms of bliss and light. Formless realms beyond all physical reference points. This sounds like ancient cosmology. It sounds like mythology. It sounds, frankly, like superstition. And perhaps it is. But before we dismiss the 31 planes as cultural baggage irrelevant to modern practice, let me ask you something. Have you never visited these realms yourself? I woke at 3:47 a.m. Not gradually, instantly, as if someone had called my name. The ceiling was unfamiliar. The sheets were unfamiliar. For one terrible second, I did not know which city I was in, which bed, which life. The craving arrived before consciousness fully assembled. Not a thought, a sensation. A hollow hunger that was not in my stomach but in my chest. I needed something. I did not know what. Sugar. Salt. Alcohol. A voice. A touch. Anything to fill the void that had suddenly opened beneath my sternum. I walked to the kitchen in darkness. Opened the refrigerator. The light revealed exactly what I had: leftover rice, half an onion, condiments. Nothing that could answer the craving. I closed the door. Opened the cupboard. Crackers, canned soup, a bag of chocolate chips purchased 6 months ago for baking. I ate a handful of chocolate chips. I ate another. I ate until the craving subsided, leaving only shame and a sticky residue on my fingers. At 3:47 a.m., I was a hungry ghost. Not metaphorically. Not poetically. I was a pita, a preta, a being with an endless belly and a throat the size of a needle's eye. My suffering was real. My craving was infinite. My satisfaction was impossible. I had been reborn in the realm of hungry ghosts, and I would remain there until the causes that produced this rebirth exhausted themselves. The Buddha did not teach the 31 planes to satisfy cosmological curiosity. He taught them as diagnostic categories. He was the world's first depth psychologist, mapping the geography of human suffering with precision that would not be matched for 2 millennia. Hell realm, you wake angry and go to sleep angrier. Every interaction confirms your suspicion that people are selfish, that the world is rigged, that you must defend yourself at all times. You cannot imagine any other way of being. This is not punishment for past sins. This is hell arising here and now from causes you yourself have cultivated. Animal realm, you react without reflection. Someone criticizes you, you strike back. Someone offers kindness, you suspect manipulation. You are governed entirely by stimulus and response, with no gap between impulse and action. This is not rebirth as a literal dog. This is the dog realm of your own mind, conditioned through years of unexamined reactivity. Human realm, you are aware that you suffer. You are aware that your suffering has causes. You suspect, dimly, that these causes might be within your power to address. You are uncertain. You waver between hope and despair. This uncertainty, this not knowing, is the human realm, and the Buddha called it the most precious rebirth of all. Deva realm, you have everything you need. Your body functions. Your relationships are stable. Your mind is calm. You experience genuine contentment, even joy. You think, perhaps, that you have solved life. You do not see that your contentment depends entirely on conditions that will inevitably change. This is the Deva realm, and it is a trap, because it offers no motivation to practice. A man named David came to see me some years ago. He was a financial advisor in his late 40s. He wore expensive watches and spoke with the particular confidence of someone who has never seriously doubted himself. "I don't believe in any of this," he said, gesturing vaguely at the meditation cushion. "Reincarnation, karma, all of it. I'm just here because my wife thinks I need to relax." I asked him what he did for work. He told me. He managed portfolios for wealthy clients. He worked 60-hour weeks. He had not taken a vacation in 4 years. His firm had just promoted him to regional director. He was very, very good at his job. "What do you feel," I asked, "when you make a successful trade?" He looked at me as if I had asked a physics question in a foreign language. "Feel? I don't. I mean, it's satisfying. I did my job well. I earned my fee. And when you lose money for a client?" His face changed slightly. A muscle in his jaw tightened. "I don't lose money for clients. I've never had a down year. Not once. But if you did, I would fix it. I would work until it was fixed." "What would you feel, while you were fixing it?" He was silent for a long time. Then he said, quietly, "Fear." We sat with this word. Fear. Not greed. Not ambition. Not even, really, love of money. Fear of falling. Fear of being ordinary. Fear of the self he would become if he stopped being the person who never had a down year. David was not suffering from greed. He was suffering from the Deva realm. The bliss of success so complete that it had become invisible. He could not practice because he did not believe he needed to practice. His contentment was his prison. 6 months later, he told me he had started taking weekends off. He had bought a kayak. He had not, he emphasized, reduced his work hours significantly, but he had begun to notice, with growing unease, that his contentment depended entirely on market conditions. When the S&P rose, he rose. When the S&P fell, he fell. "I don't want to be a derivative of the Nasdaq," he said. "I want to be. I don't know what I want to be." He wanted to be human. He wanted to leave the Deva realm and enter the only plane of existence where genuine awakening is possible, the realm of uncertainty, of not knowing, of practice. This is the human realm. Welcome. The Buddha gave one of his most remarkable teachings while holding a handful of leaves. A monk had asked him, "How much do you know? How much remains unrevealed?" The Buddha picked up some fallen leaves. "The leaves in my hand," he said, "are like what I have taught you. The leaves in the forest are like what I know but have not taught." He then explained why he withheld so much. Because it is not useful. Because it does not lead to disenchantment, to dispassion, to cessation, to peace, to direct knowledge, to awakening, to nirvana. Because the leaves in the forest are infinite, and life is short, and your task is not to know everything but to be free. This teaching applies directly to our question about how karma passes from one life to the next. The Buddha could have answered this question. He chose not to. He put those leaves down. Why? Because the question, while intellectually fascinating, is spiritually irrelevant. Whether karma travels through some subtle continuum called the Bhavanga Soda, or whether it operates through laws as impersonal as gravity, or whether it propagates through causes and conditions too complex for human conception, the practical teaching remains identical. You inherit the consequences of your ancestors' actions. You bequeath the consequences of your own actions to your descendants. This inheritance is not financial, genetic, or even psychological, it is karmic. And you are, right now, both the inheritor and the ancestor. A woman named Patricia attended a meditation retreat in upstate New York. She was 71 years old. She had raised 3 children, buried one husband, divorced another. She had spent 30 years as a nurse in a neonatal intensive care unit, holding the tiny hands of infants fighting for breath they had not yet learned to take. On the fourth day of the retreat, during a walking meditation period, she began to weep. Not silently, openly, with sounds she could not suppress. The teacher came to her and knelt on the wooden floor. "What are you seeing?" the teacher asked. Patricia said, "My grandfather." She had never met this man. He died before her mother was born. She knew only two facts about him. He was a coal miner in West Virginia, and he died at age 26 in a collapse that also killed 6 other men. "I never thought about him," Patricia said. "He was just a name on a census record. But I've been feeling, all my life, that I don't deserve to be happy. That something is fundamentally wrong with me. That I'm waiting for the ceiling to fall." She paused. Her hands were shaking. "Today I understood. It's not my feeling. It's his." He was 26 years old, and he was walking into a mountain that was about to kill him, and he knew, he must have known, and he went anyway. That's what men did in 1927. They went. And his terror didn't die with him. It entered my mother through her mother's milk. It entered me through my mother's silences. It is in my cells, in my nervous system, in the way I check the locks on my doors 3 times before bed. Patricia was describing karma across generations. Not punishment. Not reward. Just causality, propagating through the only medium that exists. One moment conditioning the next, one life conditioning the next, one terrified coal miner conditioning a 71-year-old nurse weeping on a meditation cushion in 2019. Her grandfather's karma was not her karma. She had not mined coal. She had not died young. She had not left a widow and an unborn child. And yet she had inherited the consequences of his actions. His decision to enter the mine, his love for his family that drove him to earn wages, his terror that became the atmosphere of his home. What could Patricia do with this inheritance? She could complete it. She could receive her grandfather's unprocessed terror, hold it with compassion, and release it. She could become the ancestor her descendants would inherit, rather than the descendant haunted by ancestors she never met. This is the work of karma in human lives. Not solving the mystery of how consciousness transfers between bodies, but receiving, with awareness, the inheritance we never chose, and transforming it before passing it on. The Buddha identified 4 topics he called unconjecturables, subjects so vast, so complex, so entangled with conditions beyond human perception, that attempting to understand them completely will only produce madness and vexation. The precise workings of karma are among these unconjecturables. Let me translate this for modern minds. You will never fully understand how cause and effect operate across multiple lifetimes. Stop trying. It is not the assignment. This is not anti-intellectualism. The Buddha was one of the most precise thinkers in human history. He analyzed the constituents of experience with a rigor that anticipates phenomenology, cognitive science, and systems theory. He did not discourage investigation. He simply knew, as any genuine scientist knows, that some questions exceed our current instruments. Imagine a physicist in 1850 trying to explain quantum entanglement. She would have the mathematics? No. The experimental apparatus? No. The conceptual framework? No. She could theorize, speculate, imagine, but she could not know. And in the absence of genuine knowledge, her theories would be, at best, beautiful guesses. The Buddha said, "You are the physicist in 1850. Your instrument for investigating karma is your own mind, still clouded by craving, aversion, and ignorance. You can polish this instrument through practice. You can sharpen it through meditation. You can eventually, through sustained effort, develop capacities beyond what you currently possess. But until then, your job is not to theorize. Your job is to practice." In 1978, my uncle bought a color television. This was a significant purchase. Color televisions were expensive. He saved for 2 years. He read consumer reports. He visited 3 different electronics stores. Finally, he brought home a Zenith console model in a walnut cabinet with a screen so small it now seems almost comical. The television worked perfectly for 11 months. Then the picture began to roll. Vertical lines raced upward endlessly. You could adjust the knob and achieve temporary stability, but within minutes the rolling would resume. My uncle called a repairman. The repairman arrived, opened the back of the set, removed 2 vacuum tubes, inserted 2 replacements, and closed the cabinet. The picture stabilized. The repair cost $18. My uncle asked, what was wrong? The repairman said, 2 tubes were failing. My uncle asked, why were those tubes failing? The repairman said, they're old. They have filaments that wear out. It's normal. My uncle asked, why did they fail together, after 11 months? The repairman looked at him for a long moment. Then he said, sir, I don't know. Maybe they were manufactured on the same assembly line from the same batch of materials. Maybe the power in your house fluctuated at a certain frequency. Maybe cosmic radiation hit your set at exactly the wrong moment. Maybe God decided your television should break. I don't know. Nobody knows. What I know is, your tubes were failing, I replaced them, and now your television works. My uncle was dissatisfied with this answer. He wanted a complete causal explanation. He wanted to understand why at the deepest level. He could not accept that some questions exceed our instruments. The Buddha says, you have a failing tube. Its name is ignorance. Its symptoms are craving and aversion. Its consequence is suffering. I have given you a replacement tube. Its name is the Noble Eightfold Path. Install it. Your picture will stabilize. Do not demand to know why the original tube failed. Do not demand a complete theory of television repair before you will accept treatment. Your set is rolling. The image is unwatchable. You are suffering. The repair is available. This is the unconjecturable point. Not that causality is unreal. Not that investigation is forbidden. But that some investigations, while valid in themselves, postpone the only intervention that can actually help you. Let us speak directly about darkness. Not evil, not in the theological sense. Buddhism has no devil, no principle of cosmic evil. Darkness is simply a name for what happens when light is absent. Cold is simply a name for what happens when heat is absent. And dark karma is simply a name for what happens when certain qualities are present in intention. The Buddha identified 3 root qualities that darken intention. He called them the 3 poisons, the 3 unwholesome roots, the 3 fires. In Pali, lobha, dosa, moha. In English, craving, aversion, ignorance. These are not sins. They are not moral failings. They are not evidence of your worthlessness as a human being. They are simply causes of suffering, yours and others. They are the tubes whose gradual failure produces the rolling picture of a life out of alignment. A friend of mine manages a restaurant in Portland. She has worked in food service for 22 years. She has seen every version of human behavior that hunger and alcohol can produce. She told me about a couple who dined at her restaurant on Valentine's Day. They were young. Early 30s, well-dressed, obviously in the first stages of romance, that phase where every glance is a question and every touch is an answer. They ordered champagne. They shared an appetizer. They held hands across the table. Then the woman excused herself to the restroom. While she was gone, the man's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. His expression changed. He typed a response, deleted it, typed again. His jaw tightened. He placed the phone face down on the table. The woman returned. The man said nothing. The meal continued, but something had shifted. The woman asked if he was okay. He said yes. She asked if he wanted to talk about anything. He said no. She stopped asking. They finished their meal in near silence. He paid. He left a smaller tip than the service warranted. They walked out into the February evening, and my friend never saw them again. What do you think happened? I asked. My friend shrugged. I don't know. Maybe it was an ex-girlfriend. Maybe it was work. Maybe his mother was in the hospital. But I've seen that expression 1,000 times. It's the moment someone decides that their internal experience is more important than the person sitting across from them. The moment they choose the privacy of their own suffering over the vulnerability of shared reality. She paused. I've made that choice myself. Many times. The man in this story did nothing wrong. He did not yell. He did not lie. Not explicitly. He simply allowed his craving for control, his aversion to vulnerability, his ignorance of the woman's experience to shape his intention. And that intention, expressed through his closed face and brief answers, produced suffering. This is dark karma. Not dramatic. Not demonic. Just the ordinary, human failure to remain present when presence is difficult. The Buddha elaborated the 3 poisons into 10 specific categories of dark karma, 3 of body, 4 of speech, 3 of mind. Body, destroying life, taking what is not given, sexual misconduct. Speech, false speech, divisive speech, harsh speech, idle chatter. Mind, covetousness, ill will, wrong view. At first glance, this looks like a moral code. Buddhism's version of the 10 Commandments. But it is not a code. It is a diagnostic manual. These are not rules you must obey to avoid punishment. They are symptoms you must recognize to understand your condition. Consider false speech. Why does the Buddha include it among the roots of dark karma? Not because lying is intrinsically evil. Not because the universe punishes dishonesty. but because false speech is always a failure of intimacy. When you lie, you create a gap between your inner experience and your outer expression. You inhabit two worlds simultaneously, the world of what actually happened and the world of what you claim happened. This division is suffering. It is also, inevitably, the cause of suffering in others, who must navigate a reality you have deliberately distorted. The same analysis applies to every category of dark karma. Not as commandments, but as descriptions of how suffering propagates through human systems. Killing propagates suffering. Stealing propagates suffering. Sexual misconduct propagates suffering. Divisive speech propagates suffering. Harsh speech propagates suffering. Idle chatter, the endless, mindless production of noise to fill the intolerable silence, propagates suffering. The 10 dark karmas are not bad because they are forbidden. They are forbidden because they are bad. The Buddha did not invent these categories. He observed them, the way a biologist observes that certain bacteria cause certain diseases. His list is a field guide to the pathogens of the mind. Now we must speak of something that makes many Buddhists uncomfortable. The accumulation of bright karma, generosity, kindness, ethical conduct, meditative concentration, is not the goal of Buddhist practice. It is better than accumulating dark karma. Much better. It produces pleasant results in this life and favorable circumstances in future lives. It reduces suffering. It creates conditions conducive to practice. It is, in every way, superior to its alternative. But it is still karma. And karma, regardless of its flavor, perpetuates samsara. The Buddha used a striking image. He said, "Our chains are still chains, whether they are made of gold or iron. A prisoner in a golden cage is still a prisoner. His accommodations may be more comfortable. His diet may be superior. His sentence may be served in relative luxury. But he cannot leave. He cannot fly. He cannot return to the forest where his wings remember how to open." Bright karma is a golden chain. It binds you to continued existence, pleasant existence, perhaps, but existence nonetheless. And all existence, the Buddha insisted, is characterized by 3 marks: impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and not self. Even the longest life in the highest heaven ends. Even the most refined bliss reveals itself, upon examination, to be dependent on conditions that will inevitably change. Even the most expansive sense of self dissolves when subjected to sustained attention. A man named Richard built a fortune in real estate. He was not a particularly kind man in his youth, ruthless, some said, aggressive, competitive. But in his 50s, something shifted. He began donating millions to hospitals, universities, arts organizations. His name appeared on building wings and scholarship funds. He received awards, honorary degrees, standing ovations at galas. He came to a meditation center in California, seeking, what? He wasn't sure. Peace, perhaps. Or perhaps just the next accomplishment, the next honor, the next confirmation that his life mattered. During an interview with a teacher, he described his philanthropic work. He expected praise. Instead, the teacher asked, "Why do you give money away?" Richard was offended. "Because it helps people. Because I have more than I need. Because it's the right thing to do." The teacher waited. Richard added, "Because I want to be remembered." Another silence. Richard said, "Because I'm afraid of dying and leaving nothing behind." His voice cracked on the final words. He was 63 years old. He had built 30 buildings and funded 1,000 scholarships. And in that moment, he saw that his generosity was not freedom from craving, it was craving dressed in formal wear, attending its own award ceremony. His karma was bright. His chains were gold. He was still in prison. The teacher said, "Now you can begin practice." The Buddha did not leave his followers without guidance. He identified a fourth category of karma, beyond dark, bright, and mixed. He called it karma that leads to the end of karma. This karma is neither dark nor bright. Its result is neither suffering nor happiness, at least, not as we normally understand these terms. Its result is freedom. Its result is the cessation of all results. Its result is nirvana. What karma has this extraordinary property? The Noble Eightfold Path. Right view. Right intention. Right speech. Right action. Right livelihood. Right effort. Right mindfulness. Right concentration. These 8 practices are karma. They are intentional actions performed through body, speech, and mind. And yet they do not perpetuate samsara. They dismantle it. How is this possible? How can karma undo karma? Because the Noble Eightfold Path is karma aimed at its own source. It is intention directed toward the cessation of intention. It is craving applied to the extinction of craving. It is the snake, finally grasping its own tail, and discovering that the tail and the mouth are not two separate things. Consider right view. What is right view? In its deepest sense, it is the understanding that all phenomena, including the path itself, are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self. Right view sees that right view is also a conditioned phenomenon, arising and passing away. Right view does not cling to itself. Right view sees its own emptiness and releases its own grip. This is not self-contradiction. This is recursion. This is the mind, having developed sufficient stability and clarity, turning its attention upon itself and discovering that there is no self upon which to rest. Let us return to the ocean. Not as metaphor now, but as instruction. The Buddha did not merely compare existence to waves. He taught that existence is wave-like. Not in the poetic sense. In the literal, physical, scientific sense. A wave is not a thing. A wave is an event. It has no independent existence. It is entirely dependent on water, wind, gravity, the shape of the seabed, the phase of the moon. It has no fixed identity, it is constantly changing, each molecule of water rising and falling in its turn. It has no permanent location, it appears to move across the surface, but if you follow a single water molecule, you will find it oscillating vertically, not traveling horizontally. And yet we name waves. We count them. We say, the 7th wave is always the largest, as if waves have ordinal positions. We give them character and personality, a gentle wave, a vicious wave, as if they possess internal qualities rather than merely expressing external conditions. You are a wave. You appear to travel through time, but your constituent parts are constantly exchanged. You appear to have a fixed identity, but your thoughts, feelings, and sensations change moment by moment. You appear to be a separate entity moving through a world of other separate entities, but your boundaries are entirely conventional. Where does the wave end and the ocean begin? When a wave subsides, where does it go? It does not go anywhere. It does not travel to another ocean. It does not await rebirth in some watery heaven. It simply ceases, its energy dissipates, its water returns to the surrounding medium, its form dissolves into the formlessness from which it arose. And yet the wave's effects continue. The sand it shifted remains shifted. The shore it reshaped remains reshaped. The surfer it carried remembers the ride. The wave is gone, utterly gone, with no essence or soul or self to continue, and yet everything continues. This is rebirth without reincarnation. This is continuation without continuity. This is you, dying and being reborn in every moment, leaving traces that condition the next moment's wave. My neighbor planted a cherry tree in 1998. Not a sapling from a nursery, a seed. She saved the pit from a bowl of fruit, dried it on her windowsill, planted it in a clay pot, and waited. The tree grew slowly. It spent its first 3 years in the pot, developing roots strong enough to support a future it could not yet imagine. In 2001, my neighbor planted it in her backyard. By 2005, it produced its first cherries, not many, and not sweet, but unmistakably fruit. My neighbor died in 2017. Her children sold the house. The new owners did not garden. They did not prune or fertilize or thin the fruit. The cherry tree, accustomed to care, began to decline. Last spring, I noticed the tree had produced blossoms. Not many, a few clusters near the top, where sunlight still reached through the overgrown branches. The blossoms were pale, almost white, and they fell within days. I stood beneath that tree and thought, this is karma. My neighbor's intention, to plant, to nurture, to wait decades for fruit she would only partially live to enjoy, continued expressing itself through wood and leaf and petal. She was gone. Her consciousness had not transferred into the tree. Her soul had not taken up residence in its branches. And yet she was there, in the only way any of us are ever anywhere, through the consequences of what she had done. The tree will die eventually. Perhaps next year, perhaps in 10 years. Its wood will rot or burn. Its atoms will disperse into soil and air. The carbon will be inhaled by maples and exhaled by children. Nothing will remain that could be called my neighbor's cherry tree. But the children who taste sweetness and call it cherry will taste something that began with a woman saving a pit on a windowsill in 1998. This is continuity without identity. This is rebirth without a self. This is the only immortality any of us will ever know. Let us speak honestly about faith. Modern people, educated, rational, scientifically literate people, are uncomfortable with faith. We associate it with childhood beliefs outgrown, with supernatural claims unsupported by evidence, with the abandonment of critical thinking in favor of comfortable delusion. We pride ourselves on believing only what can be proven. And yet we believe, without proof, that the sun will rise tomorrow. We believe that our memories correspond to actual events. We believe that other people have inner lives as rich and real as our own. We believe that cause and effect operate consistently, even though quantum physics has demonstrated that at the most fundamental level, they do not. All human cognition rests on unprovable axioms. The question is not whether you have faith. The question is what you have faith in, and whether that faith serves your flourishing. The Buddha did not ask his followers to believe in karma and rebirth as articles of faith. He asked them to live as if these teachings were true and observe the results. This is not belief, it is hypothesis testing. It is the scientific method applied to the conduct of life. Try it. For 1 week, act as if your intentions genuinely matter. As if every thought, word, and deed is a seed that will bear fruit. As if you are not a separate self navigating a world of separate others, but a wave inseparable from the ocean that generates you. Observe what happens. Not at the level of cosmic justice, you will not win the lottery or be struck by lightning. Observe at the level of your own experience. Do you suffer less? Do you cause less suffering? Does your life feel more meaningful, more connected, more real? This is the only proof the Buddha ever offered. Not argument. Not scripture. Not authority. Just, try it and see. A woman named Sister Mary Catherine attended a 10-day silent retreat at a Buddhist center in Massachusetts. She was 78 years old. She had been a nun for 53 years. She wore her habit throughout the retreat, not as a statement, she explained, but because it was the only clothing she owned that was suitable for meditation. On the 5th day, during a discourse on karma, she raised her hand. I don't believe in reincarnation, she said. My faith teaches me that we have one life, one death, one judgment, one eternity. I cannot accept that I will return as an animal or a god or another human being. It contradicts everything I hold sacred. The teacher asked, do you believe your actions matter? Of course. They matter eternally. They determine the state of my soul at death. Do you believe your actions affect others? Yes. Every action ripples outward forever. Do you believe you are the same person you were at 20? At birth? Before you entered the convent? She considered. No. I am not the same. But I am continuous with that person. Her choices led to mine. Her vows are my vows. The teacher was silent for a long time. Then he said, Sister, you believe in karma and rebirth. You simply use different words. She wept. Not from distress, from recognition. She had traveled 500 miles to learn from Buddhists, and discovered that she had been a Buddhist all along, speaking the language of grace instead of karma, of resurrection instead of rebirth, of eternal life instead of endless wandering. The teacher said, the Buddha never claimed to have a monopoly on truth. He claimed to have found one path to the end of suffering. If your path leads to the same end, walk it with full confidence. Do not abandon your ancestors' way. Perfect it. Sister Mary Catherine completed the retreat. She returned to her convent. She continued to pray the divine office, receive the Eucharist, tend the garden where her sisters grew vegetables for the local food pantry. And she continued, also, to sit in meditation each morning, observing her breath, watching her mind, noticing how each intention seeded the next. She wrote to the teacher 6 months later, I have not changed my religion. I have changed my relationship to my religion. I no longer believe because I must. I believe because I have seen. The same sun illuminates both our temples. Perhaps it is the same sun. We have covered vast territory tonight. The architecture of intention. The 31 rooms of conditioned existence. The river that is not the river. The wave that is not the wave. The golden chains. The three poisons. The unconjecturable point. Now we must answer the only question that actually matters. What should you do? Not what should you believe. Not what should you understand. Not what should you accept as possible or reject as impossible. What should you do, with your body, your speech, your mind, starting now, starting here, starting with the next breath you take? The Buddha's answer is absurdly simple. It is also impossibly difficult. It is: cultivate bright karma. Not because it will earn you a better rebirth, although it will. Cultivate bright karma because the act of cultivation transforms the cultivator. And when the cultivator has been sufficiently transformed, she will naturally, inevitably, effortlessly, cease to cultivate even brightness. She will not need to. She will be brightness. Her actions will not be karma, they will be the spontaneous expression of wisdom and compassion, without intention, without effort, without an actor behind the act. A man named James began volunteering at a children's hospital after his own son died of leukemia. He was not a Buddhist. He had no interest in meditation, no belief in karma, no patience for what he called spiritual window dressing. He simply could not bear to remain in his house, surrounded by his son's toys and books and half-finished model airplanes. He volunteered in the playroom. He read stories to children too weak to hold books. He pushed 4 poles while children rode tricycles down the hallway. He sat with parents in waiting rooms, not speaking, just present. He did this for 7 years. The hospital gave him an award. He missed the ceremony. Someone asked him why he continued. His son had been dead for years. He had no personal connection to any of the current patients. He received no payment, no recognition, no tangible benefit. He thought about the question for a long time. Then he said, "I don't know. I show up. It's what I do now." This is karma that has become nature. This is intention that has become spontaneity. James did not intend to become a compassionate person, he intended to escape his own grief, to feel useful, to honor his son's memory. But his intentions, repeated thousands of times across thousands of hours, built something that no longer required intention. He became compassion. He did not practice compassion, he was compassion. His actions ceased to be karma and became simply the expression of what he had made of himself. This is the path. Not to become someone else. Not to escape who you are. But to become, fully and completely, the person your best intentions are trying to build. And then to release even that person into the vast, selfless, luminous awareness from which all persons arise. We began this evening with breath. Let us end the same way. One breath. Just one. Not a special breath. Not forced or shaped into something it isn't. Just the ordinary miracle of air entering, leaving. In this breath, you are receiving the karma of all your ancestors. Their joys and terrors, their generosity and cruelty, their wisdom and ignorance, all of it converges in this single inhalation, this single moment of being alive. In this breath, you are creating the karma of all your descendants. Your intentions, expressed through this breath's actions, will ripple outward through time and space, touching lives you will never meet, shaping worlds you will never see. In this breath, you are neither the ancestor nor the descendant. You are neither the cause nor the effect. You are neither the wave nor the ocean. In this breath, you are simply here. Present. Aware. Alive. The Buddha said, "What you seek is seeking you." You have spent this evening seeking understanding of karma and rebirth. You have traced the architecture of intention, visited the 31 rooms, followed the river that is not the river, ridden the wave that is not the wave. You have encountered stories of gardeners and elevator doors, piano teachers and cherry trees, philanthropists and Catholic nuns. And through all of this seeking, something has been seeking you. It is not something. It is not a thing at all. It is the awareness in which all seeking occurs, the space of consciousness that contains every thought, every feeling, every sensation, every breath. It has never been absent. It has never been distant. It has never been other than what you are, in the depths before self-conception, in the silence beneath mental chatter, in the gap between one intention and the next. This awareness does not believe in karma. It does not disbelieve. It simply observes karma arising and passing away, as the sky observes clouds without becoming wet. This awareness is not reborn. It is not born at all. It is the unborn, the uncreated, the unconditioned, present in all conditions, untouched by all conditions, the formless ground of every form. The Buddha called this nirvana. He said it is not a place to reach, but a reality to recognize. He said it is closer than your own breath, more intimate than your own thoughts, more you than anything you have ever called I. And he said that the path to this recognition is paved with your own intentions, bright and dark, gold and iron, self and other. Every intentional act is a step on this path. Every thought, word, and deed is either movement toward recognition or movement away. There is nowhere to arrive. There is only the recognition, in this breath and the next, that you have never been separate from what you seek. The seeker and the sought are one awareness, dreaming itself into separation, dreaming itself back into unity. You have always been here. You have never left. What you seek is seeking you. If these teachings have resonated with you, if something in these words has found its way past your skepticism and into the quiet space where you simply know what you know, please consider subscribing. Not because I need your attention. Not because the algorithm rewards engagement. But because this conversation matters, and conversations only continue when people choose to continue them. Share these teachings with someone who needs them. Not as doctrine to believe, as hypothesis to test. As invitation to experiment with living as if intention matters, as if actions have consequences, as if the wave and the ocean are not two separate things. Practice for 1 week. Just one. Observe your intentions. Notice their consequences in your own heart, in your relationships, in the quality of your presence. See if your life becomes more wakeful, more connected, more free. Then decide what you believe. This is the Buddha's way. Not blind faith. Not reflexive skepticism. But the courageous, continuous, compassionate investigation of your own experience. Thank you for spending this evening at Monk's Moon Temple. May your intentions be bright. May your karma lead to the end of karma. May you recognize, in this very life, the unborn awareness that has always been your true nature. Until we meet again.